I think back during this debate to 2016, and a new government had been formed in the fall of 2015 that committed itself to accepting Syrian refugees into Canada out of necessity of what had been going on at that particular time in Syria. And I remember this vividly. In the late winter, after a lot of the refugees had come in to Canada, we had a number living with host families in Kingston, and a local organization that had been coordinating all of this put on an event. And the point of the event was to say thank you to everybody who had gone out of their way to be so generous in accepting and bringing new refugees into their homes so that they could start a new life. And I remember being at this event. I was a newly elected member of Parliament at the time, very proud of the work that our government had done. And I got up at the request of the organizers to say something to the group. And I got up and I talked about the incredible generosity of our community and those that had extended their hands and opened the doors to their homes to let refugees in. And I thanked them profusely for doing that and for being so Canadian in a moment of need for people around the world. And I concluded my remarks and I went and I sat down. And at the end of the event, well, there was like a reception going on afterwards. An individual came up to me and he said, "You know, Mark, I really liked what you said, and I thought that it was great that you thanked all of the local families for being so incredibly generous, but you forgot to thank the refugees." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "You forgot to thank them for picking Canada." And it's really interesting because I don't think I've ever forgotten that moment. And I've thought a lot about it in the last 10 years, about when that individual said that, because he made me realize something that is so incredibly true to the Canadian identity. When you think about it, Mr. Speaker, a refugee, an asylum seeker, is somebody who has chosen to leave everything behind in their home country, pick up their family, leave property, leave assets, leave valuable connections to their history and their culture behind, to go and probably stay in a refugee camp for several months before struggling and fighting your way to get to Canada, to start a brand new life for your family in an area you've never been to before, in entering into cultural identity you've never been part of before. And when you stop and think about it, who could you possibly want more in your community to build your community than fighters like that? And so when this individual made this comment to me and he said, "You forgot to thank the refugees for picking Canada," it dawned on me that who could we possibly want more than people that are willing to fight? These are not people who want to milk the system. These are not people who want to just lay back and do nothing. They put everything on the line to get here. They want to fight for their survival in most times. I can't think of anybody who you would want more to build your country, to contribute to your country. And it actually made me think of my grandparents. Albeit not refugees by the definition that we use today, but like so many other immigrants that came to this country after the Second World War. My grandfather on my parents' side from Italy, their country was destroyed. My father from Holland, again, their country destroyed. But their grandparents decided, I want to pick up and go to another country to start a new life for my family. And as a result of that, they came here. My uncles, my Italian uncles, set up construction companies and contributed to this country. My grandfather worked as a janitor in a hospital so that his dad could go to law school and one day become a member of provincial parliament, and his grandson is standing right here before you right now. That is the result of our embracing culture and identity in Canada. Okay. Somebody mentioned it earlier today. They said, unless you are of Indigenous descent, we've all come to this country over the last couple hundred years. And that's the reality of the situation. You know, conservatives are focused on this whole thing of like this, you know, they say that we're trying to paint a picture of them setting up a false dichotomy of us versus them, and it's not true. It's right in their motion. Item 4 says, quote, Canadians that have paid into their healthcare system their whole lives, so you're obviously talking about seniors, are unable to get the health care they deserve, in part because resources are going to false asylum claimants. They're intentionally doing this. They're setting up a dichotomy of us versus them, because they know that that is dog whistle politics. What is dog whistle politics? We use this term a lot, but I want to define it for you. Dog whistle politics is when a human hears nothing unusual, but dogs hear a loud, clear signal. In other words, political messaging seems harmless, but carries a hidden meaning for a specific group. And the hidden meaning in this motion is refugees are stealing your health care. That is the message that they're giving. And what they do, Mr. Speaker, is they will take their videos and their clips and they will feed it to their base, and they will say, the leader of the opposition can stop this. All we need is $25 from you. Donate now. I have been watching this for the better part of 10 years, certainly since this leader of the opposition came along. It's gotten a lot worse. But that's what we're experiencing right now. We're experiencing and watching, once again, conservatives trying to say that refugees are horrible because they're taking everything away from your Canadian identity. Why do they have to phrase it like that? I asked the member who spoke before, the last Conservative member, a very pointed question. They will claim, they'll say, once you've been rejected, you should no longer get health care. Well, once you have been rejected, you don't get health care. What they're leaving out of this, because it's a nuance that's very important to point out, is that just like all of our justice processes, there's an opportunity to appeal. So what they're saying is, once the first decision has come down and said, you are not going to be given asylum, they're saying you shouldn't be given any health care through your appeal process. Well, if that's how they feel, if their issue was really about the appeal process, why didn't they come in here today and put forward a motion that says we get rid of the appeal process? Because that wouldn't have generated the same kind of fundraising that they plan to generate off this. So, Mr. Speaker, I am extremely disappointed to once again have to stand in this House and call out the conservative tactics, the games that they play intentionally to divide Canadians. That's what they're doing now. That's what I've seen them do for years. And I think it is absolutely shameful to do it in this regard.
Hear, hear.